first I would like to introduce you. So, Eowyn Chen, the CEO of Trust Wallet. I would like at first to say Happy New Year for you. So usually in now for between each other in the crypto space, we would say, wish you a better year ahead. So as 2022 was a harsh year, but maybe not for wallet business. So wallets enjoyed a lot the drain of assets from exchanges to them. So tell me about this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Walid. It was great talking to you and potentially to your audience too. To your point, 2022 was hard for everyone, but it was a bit mixed for us Wallet, because I think that's also the year the industry starts to realize some of the true value proposition for why being decentralized is valuable and why having full ownership is valuable. So it was, I think, usually through crisis, sometimes new technologicals value thrives. And clearly that's what we see in our wallet space when some of the tragedies happen with certain centralized platforms, when the users don't know who to trust. We unfortunately can offer an option for people to say, hey, you can trust yourself, but you need to know what it takes. And another thing interesting for us is last year was great for us. It was the year that we 3 times our team. We used to be an extremely small team with like 15, 20 people serving 10 million active users. And now we have happily 3x that, so we don't feel that we're too stringent. We wouldn't be able to have it when the market is too hot, but talent competition is just too fast. And it was actually in the bear market that we can get the most double down, idealistic, vision-driven talents, engineers to join us to build. So that was good for us. Another thing good for us is because we're so small, and usually in the bear market, we get a lot of the noises. Like we have to just quickly go onto the market on whatever product feature it is, but usually they doesn't mean that infrastructure-wise, technological-wise, they're the best solution. So now we get the chance to have the team not respond externally, but focus on, can we make our product, our technology infrastructure more solid so that we can prepare the industry for the next round of mass adoption, another round of the users to come. And especially for us, when we're serving 10 million active users, we're not just thinking about, hey, here are the existing smaller groups. We really need to scale up this, the infrastructure so that it's going to be another 100 million. It's going to be another 1 billion. We need to look ahead. And right now is, I actually think, the best time. Honestly.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. So in the last 2 months, and this is the only question that I'll connect Trust Wallet with Binance with. So in the last 60 days or so, around 13 billion worth of asset left Binance. So did you, did they move to Trust, or people consider Trust Wallet is a Binance thing and move somewhere else?
Well, first of all, we don't know. I would have to be honest, because I think because there's a lot of privacy protection that we put in place, we don't know where the users come from unless it's on-chain public data. Say Etherscan mark the certain wallets is from Binance and transfer to another address, and we know the address. That's to the most that we know. That's, that given a lot of the privacy protection mechanism, we don't know the sources of a lot of the funds. So unfortunately, I would love to feature the data. I can't because we don't know for sure. I don't think many of the people know that we are a Binance or portfolio company to begin with, because we have always been operating extremely independently. And the second is, users don't need to trust me. If they are truly into self-custody, they would know that everything's open. There's nothing that as a self-custody wallet would have access to users' funds. So it doesn't really matter whether they need to trust that, Binance is not interfering with Trust Wallet or not. They just need to know that, hey, here's my on-chain addresses. Here are all the assets that on that on-chain. And if they are somehow not happy with our product UI, they can use any other product UI. It's the same private key, same addresses, they can access anywhere. But my confidence is that we just provide one of the best user interfaces for most of the people. So we actually observed people ended up aggregating towards us for a better UI. Like if some other wallets give them better niche services, feel free to go because you should get one.
I will comment on this by the end of the interview. I don't want to give you these positive vibes all together at once. Trust is one of the most successful. Go ahead.
May I add quickly? I think the FTX incidents definitely makes a lot of the people who don't know which centralized parties to trust move to decentralization. But I still have to say that it was still struggling for most of the wallet providers to make sure the user education is there.
This is one of the questions that I have in mind, and we can jump on it directly now, because dealing with Web 3.0 in general and the wallet kind of the address, the private key, the seed phrase all together. So people were not used to. And yes, some initiatives were happening here and there about educating people about that. But education somehow, especially centralized exchanges, they tried their best. Everyone has his own academy now. They are trying to do things, and they do this animation videos and so on and so forth. But in my opinion, we're lagging behind in terms of using gamification and using it for the sake of educating people. So do you have something in mind about raising awareness and educating people using gamification?
I think that's a good suggestion. Actually, our community had proposals, and would love to have some kind of learning integration as well. We are thinking about it. I think the key is how to do that right. Yeah. Because I balance both between the seamless user experiences for people to do what they truly want to do, and when is the right time to interfere with the education or gamification that might at some point distract them from the key mission that why they use the product. Yeah. I think that is the hard product design or process design that we are still thinking before we take on anything specifically. But everyone knows that you will be needed, you will be really helpful, but how to execute that. So I think we can probably see some of the experiments coming out. It doesn't have to be coming from Trust Wallet, it can come from all the other providers. Exactly. And, yeah. So that is something I think would be helpful. Another thing I personally think could be helpful is how can we leverage the AI capabilities like ChatGPT on the educational part? Because especially when the data is all open source, the data is all available publicly on chain, there's nothing to hide that I will be worried about the AI say something that they should not say publicly. So maybe it's better for us as, on-chain product wallet to experiment that maybe instead of doing customer support when the users already suffer from a loss and there's nothing that we can do since we have no control to the keys in the funds, maybe we can preload some of those user education. Like when you see your key restoration phases, we can do some of the education through little chat interactions. It doesn't even have to be gamification. It can be very simple stimulus and then a little bit of reminder and automated without too much operational overhead. Those are some of the
maybe gamification would reach a younger audience, I believe, and it might be more interesting for the youth because everybody is on gaming. So this was question that was raised once, from my audience. So just it was a small suggestion for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Trust is one of the most successful self-custodial wallets in the market because of it is simple, it is secure, beside a wide range of assets. But it is still considered as a payment wallet and not a saving wallet. Do you agree with me on that?
Oh, absolutely would not agree with that. I think that would be a very limited view about what we do. So Yeah, so
because here
first
I'm comparing between self-custodial or the application wallet and the cold wallet, or like Ledger and other the hardware cold wallet.
So I think as a fundamental category, hardware wallet should do what it's best to do in terms of one value proposition, that is just keep the storage and the key as secure as possible, right? Like hardware wallet doesn't hold custody of the fund. The assets are on chain. The only thing that they're just trying to do is segregate the access to the key as less touch points as possible. So if I were to mention the security or potential exposureness of the private key, hardware wallet will be, of course, the lowest if it doesn't connect to the internet. But if the hardware wallet does connect to the internet, you still get the same exposure as if it's a mobile wallet. We, as a mobile wallet or extension wallet, I will compare between these two formats. Mobile wallet is probably in the middle. It's because you have exposure to the internet, but you have that mobile enclave, that it is some level of the segregation comparing to extension, which is very integrated and connected to all the internet services that potentially have the highest exposure.
Exactly.
So it's just different product formats or the surfaces that will have a native differences in the security. But given that, I think cold wallet, I would just call cold hardware wallet is the best if serve a users who wants to hold the majority of their assets in self-custody. And the expectation is that they are not going to frequently use it. They are not going to be frequently moving the
Trading
funds.
Or
because
paying,
yeah, exactly. But then that's not a value proposition. Personally, I think a hot wallet, no matter that's mobile wallet or extension wallet, focuses on. I often describe that, cold wallet should be your savings account. You probably touch it once or twice a year. And the hot wallet is the actual checking account or your cash wallet that you do it frequently, but not in big amount. The combination of the services is the best for users' experiences. So then how do you actually make that frequent usage usable? That's what we focus on. So we focus on, first of all, how do we get access? How do we help the users to get access to as many tokens and innovations they can have? Cold wallet will have a harder technical time to integrate with many of the chains, but we support 60 chains. I'm sorry, 70.
Yeah.
My number needs to be updated. Right. So that means that if you cannot get the majority of some of the assets that you're interested in, NFT or non-fungible tokens, then hardware wallet is a good stepping stone. Let me just try something. Let me just try that new concept. Let me just try that new chain. So we want to give people that opportunity. So for example, we were one of the biggest wallets to integrate with Aptos, right? So when users want to play with Aptos or any of the applications on Aptos, instead of download another Aptos specific wallet, that they can do it out of, just one product. So that is something we want to make sure that we can provide, but it will definitely be slower speed and slower velocity compared to a cold storage. And same with other decentralized applications on those 70 chains. Right? If I just wanted to play with this GameFi, I want to try out this social fine, no matter which ecosystem that they build on, mobile wallet, we give them that browser, web browser access. So they can directly go to that application website and connect to the wallet and use it. So we consider hardware wallet, at least I consider hardware wallet will ultimately be that aggregator and that access points for utilities. And that's what we focus on, is that frequency, that accessibility, that seamless ease of the use. And I will recommend that don't use hardware wallet for the majority of your assets that you frequently touches. So diversify it and know what product format is best for what purposes and use that.
Yeah, I agree. So you talked once about trade-off decision. So what is your trade-off decision that you feel you will have to make in the future on the wallet experience? Is it the simplicity, the security, or the openness?
I think those are the three triangles that everyone needs to wrestle with. one thing that's specific to self-custody wallet that we always need to wrestle with is stay true to being, I actually think it's stay true to self-custody versus ease of use. It will be much easier for the user onboarding experiences with 1 click or 2 click if you're willing to sacrifice it to semi-custody or no custody, right? That's what centralized platforms do, is that I hold custody for you and I make it really easy for you because they will have that technical database infrastructure channel to design that user experiences. For self-custody, we don't. We're fundamentally relying on what is the blockchain experiences. And then because users take the full control, you will inevitably making sure that there is going to be that segregation between how much a self-custody wallet can do versus not. So I think ultimately for any of the wallet, if they want to go to the extreme of the ease of the use, the self-custody portion is the one that's hardest to overcome. For us, I think the most important thing is self-custody is the bottom line that we believe in. That's in our values and mission, is that fundamentally gives self-custody wallet the value that the other part of the product format cannot provide for users. So that's the bottom line that we wanted to hold. And then we will aim for ease of the use and security, and then use of use, because security is the bottom line. If people doesn't have security, no matter how easy to use that you are, like, you just won't use it anymore. It breaks the trust. You take the trust really seriously. So that is going to be our trade-off decision, like self-custody, security, and then ease of use is how we will prioritize it.
So the idea is, let's say with any exchange, whenever they receive a sanction list, they can block the assets of any users anytime. So this is not easy for you, or can't be done because the assets are on chain and not under your custody. So, but at least, what do you do in this case? Do you stop funds of moving into trust wallets earlier before moving them to chain, or what? Do you block any sanction address to transfer money to trust?
So the key question is actually not on the wallet side, it's on the blockchain side. Right? Because as long as the blockchain doesn't allow one address transaction to another address transaction to be topped, wallet is surpassable. So and this is what I believe, is that when bad actors wants to do it, there's no way to stop it. Like, no matter how much internet is censored, I'm sure there's still dark web, right? But what we should focus on is, we definitely want to do what is the right thing for the world. And we will hold up to what we believe to be the right value proposition for security of the entire space. And that's legitimate. That's protecting the user's fundamental rights to do so. I think this is a challenge for both the regulators and the technologists. I do know that some of the regulators are talking to fundamental blockchains and say that, hey, can you change the rules so that there could be a stopping point, right? And then, of course, technicals in the industry will be like, no, that's hard to do, or blockchain is not the right place to do it. I think this is an ongoing exploration process. It's more than just one party. Like, everyone needs to work together to kind of understand what is the purpose, what is possible, what is not possible. And given that, how do we design a fair requirements or fair expectation for everyone involved. But something I think a regulator needs to wrap the mind around is that if the bad actors wants to do something, even if they block the entire wallets in the space, it's very, very easy for someone just to write a wallet software and continue to access the blockchain. So the regulator always needs to think about what's the right enforcement surfaces that can help to serve their purposes. We'll see. But as a space, I think we should proactively work with the regulators on what is the right fair playground to set up. Because if we don't collaborate, if we don't proactively thinking about solutions, the worst case is that,
it will become a Web2 application at the end.
No, it's just that the majority of the people also won't feel comfortable coming in either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
but
how
the idea, for me, one of the biggest challenge, I believe, is to educate regulator not to push Web3 application to become Web2 application at the end of the day by trying to regulate them. So this is a major issue. So talking about compliance, so more compliance, more KYC, and so means bigger cost on applications or operators like you or service provider. So what is your profit model as a wallet, if you allow me?
I actually think the services that we provide is advertising or internet aggregator services. So again, right, I don't have the backend, I don't have whatever trading. So we don't do what the exchanges services are. We don't charge anything for swap fees. And I know that some of the other peers may be thinking about that business model, but that's not us. We are right now mostly thinking about, oh, we might be driving this user base or this volume to these fiat channels, and then let's get a little bit of that revenue share from the fiat channels fees. However, we really want to help our community to enjoy the benefit. That's what I think is the fundamentals of the Web3 business model, is that I want the users and the product to grow together with the same aligned interests. And then so for us, it's that, hey, if you hold 100 TWT, you don't pay, you get a significant discounts of that fees. So I'm thinking about revenue model as if we were ever able to work with our partners or being able to work out with the industries to identify a potential economic format, I want to develop a utility out of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be different from any Web2 companies. Then we'll lose the true identity. So that's sometimes my team will challenge me and say, hey, hypothetically, if we find a product feature that's high user pain point value, that's also high potential for revenue, but we just cannot figure out a TWT utility, do we do it or not? First of all, I think there's always a way that we can find out a utility of it. But if we don't, I'd rather we don't charge. This is something I feel comfortable, and CZ and I agree, is that we will push it for user adoption. We will push it for user growth more than revenue interest. And in fact, CZ convinced me to try to not put revenue as a key goal for the team, but really double down and focus on what's the user problem to figure out first. But I will consider if we can get a utility for user to enjoy the upsides and the user growth, and the company can grow with it, that's the best scenario that I wanted to explore as a plan A first.
Being as a CEO for less than a year almost, so what are your KPIs for the coming years?
So my most important goal is user adoption. This is what as Trust Wallet, the founders, Victor and I always agree on, is that we want to focus on what is the next wave of the users that we can help to onboard. So MAU is always the most important thing for us. Then afterwards, I think for me is I wanted to take Trust Wallet to be able to grow with a very good foundation. Like, how can we operate as a business as lean as possible, and people get a tremendous opportunity to grow, to innovate, to find out good utilities and products to build out and work with the industry partners. Because Wallet, as what I see, is a platform. Wallet is never a means, it's just a means to the end. It's never the end itself. And no one comes to Web3 because they want to use a wallet. Everyone comes to Web3 because something else interesting is out there. So I want the team to have a very service mentality mindset, is whatever the builders are doing, how can we better serve them? How can we bridge the users that we help to onboard more seamlessly to them? So what we're focusing on is how can we better support the developer communities? How can they build faster so that the team is not a bottleneck? I don't want the team's growth to scale proportionally to the user growth. I think that's a failure. I want the team's growth to be very much tapped, but then we figure out decentralized way to either decentralize some of the decision-making or builders program, and then they can build it out. Community can own it, and then it doesn't have to be the core team. That is an internal goal that I have. about how I'm thinking about the next 1 to 100 growth stage on top of what we're able to achieve through our own effort ourselves. So that is an OKR, key objectives that I want to set up internally. And lastly I wanted to inherit from Victor. He is an extremely high integrity person, really cares about users, and the not caring about revenue comes from him too. So fortunately, we can somehow afford to do that. Then I want to carry that forward. The space is full of a lot of egos sometimes, or full of bad decision making or quick profitability. I don't want us just to think about, hey, let's grow for 2 years and then cash out, leave. We're such an early space. There's still so much work that I need to do. I've been telling the team, let's think about for the next 10, 20 years. Can we set up the right scale? Can we set up the right infrastructure? Can I set up the right culture and the values? I do want to prove to the world, or at least experiment and try out, can we build a good Web3 projects with the right integrity and the way of doing things that is still going to empower scalable growth? We don't have to sacrifice integrity or how we do businesses, the values, for fast growth. I want to have sustainable growth for the space.
So last question, at least. So one of the best, I didn't want to say this at the beginning, so I don't want to look like bias, one of the best wallets in the market. The question is, are you gonna capitalize on this and create better coordination between wallets? And because somehow your aim always to help developers to build better, but at the end of the day, like I see exchanges competing with each other, but somehow they manage always to communicate and talk to each other and coordinate, but not on the same level with wallets. So why don't you try to put a common, a basic infrastructure that people can, developers can connect to any wallet anytime? So, and I believe only Trust Wallet can lead such an initiative, because you are big enough to do that, because you already did the hardcore job with connecting with 70 different blockchain and so on and so forth. So
yeah, I would love that. I would love that. So what we do is, that's why we open source our infrastructure as much as possible. So our 70 multi-chain infrastructure is completely open source. I already know 7 to 8 different mobile wallets built on top of our own infrastructure to enjoy that scalability. And then I think that's great, because everyone gets to experiment how to do the best product design according to their own understanding of the user pain points, and we can learn from each other. So we can compete or have diversity on the product layer, infrastructure layer. Let's make it scalable so that everyone can go faster. So our infrastructure is called Wallet Core. Crypto.com wallet is built on top of it. Blockchain.com's wallet is built on top of it. It's just the world really knows, because we were like a 20 people engineering team. Like, no one talks about it. We do all the hard work for the 5 years, and for the really hardcore developers, they figure that platform out, they leverage it. But no one else in the world knows about it. And that's our commitment that we're building, putting a lot of the engineering times to do. To your point, I think one of the biggest challenges is regarding dApps, decentralized applications on the different blockchains that all have a slightly different standards. And some of the dApps themselves will want to adapt their own way, especially some of the earlier legacy big dApps projects. They tend to use their own standard and never change it. It is extremely painful for us too, that if we want to open up certain dApps browser connection points, we have to build like 5, 10, 20 different standards just to connect to that dApps. Yes. So that's why we're one of the biggest supporter for a Wallet Connect. Starting from the beginning, we help that team to grow, because we do believe that in the earlier stage, they were open source, just a nonprofit standard projects, we want them to be able to grow and have that protocol layer as much as possible. And Trust Wallet just become like one of the key wallets that adopted the Wallet Connect to help other wallets to adopt that standard. But however, even believe so, I think they still have a hard time to really expand multi-chains. And there are also a lot of Web3 adapters are competing with each other for the standards. I wish and I hope is something that we can do to get everyone aligned. It's just say, let's move on from the protocol layer. No need to compete on the protocol layer.
Exactly.
Have a standard, everyone. That's better for everyone. So I will share my position here. I love it. And I would love to work with any of the protocol layers that are able to do this. I hope more wallets can do that too. But sometimes the different wallets don't necessarily listen to us. Everyone focus on building themselves. But I think for anyone have a long-term view, this is easier, saving engineering cost in the long term.
So that's it. That's all from my side. Thank you for being with us. It was a very interesting discussion, and I enjoyed it a lot. And hopefully the same for Unlock Blockchain audience and readers.